Bonjour les amis, bonjour, bonjour. Welcome to the Loire Valley, welcome to Tours. We are about to enjoy a live stroll, a virtual tour in my city. I'm going to try and share as many street vibes as I can with you today. It's a very busy time. We're still 2 weeks away from Christmas, but there are a lot of people around enjoying the weather because it's not raining. Bonjour à tous, welcome, welcome. We will share some holiday cheer. We will share some great French street vibes. And I hope you enjoy this tour. I'm going to get started now. Here we go. Let's join the melee, shall we? So we are in an enclosure here. The city is doing exactly the same thing they did last year during the lockdown. They have spread out their Christmas markets around the city. So this is a small one. And I picked this one because it has a very pretty merry-go-round in the center. It's actually a manège, a merry-go-round. You can see it. It's a giant Christmas tree. And when we did about 2 weeks ago or so, I took you to the start of the holiday season on Place Jean Jaurès when they lit up the giant Christmas tree. And I took you all along the Rue Nationale, the lifeline of the city, all the way to another Christmas market and the Ferris wheel. So I thought I wouldn't do the same thing today. I'm going to do something a little bit different. So this is your typical Christmas market. There are a lot of crafts. Thank you for confirming the sound is good. That's very helpful. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. We have crafts, as is customary in most Christmas markets these days. We don't have snow. This lady is making wood objects, and they make music actually. And then we have food, of course. This is a traiteur who specializes in oriental pastries and food as well. I'm going to try and get closer to some of them, but for now I'm in a good spot to show you this beautiful manège merry-go-round, which happens to be a Christmas tree. Welcome, thank you for joining me. So the way this works is people sit in those big bubbles there, you see them? And then they go around, they go up and down. You can see the line to get on it. There's also a line to get in here. And we're all wearing face masks because you have to wear face masks in crowded places outdoors now. We also had to show our health pass to get in. We are on a square in Tours called Place de la Résistance. Here is a popular little cabane here. They've improvised a little cafe because this is where you get your mulled wine, your vin chaud, made with red wine or white wine. I see your messages popping up. Thank you. Bonjour, bonjour, welcome. I'm glad you can join me today. This lady sells excellent chocolate. Everything is handmade, she says. We have some pretty good chocolate makers in Tours. Here is the young gentleman. I featured one of his wonderful candles, handmade in Tours, and the scents are from Grasse, which is a city in southern France, famous for its essential oils and flowers, and he uses those to make his candles. And they're called Inola candles. You can find them online, and I bought one that smells just like a Christmas tree, and it's wonderful. I'm sorry I can't show you any better. It's pretty crowded, as you can tell. This gentleman sells a specialty from the Touraine region where we are, which is les poires tapées, made with pears that have been dehydrated, and then they marinate in spirits as well. You can make desserts with them, jam, all sorts of things. Les poires tapées, because they hit them to flatten them. Le pain d'épices, the French version of gingerbread. You see the sign here, pain d'épices. That's a Christmas delicacy. So we have quite a few things here to eat, delicious things. Pain d'épices made with honey, spices, a tradition in many French regions, including here. Look at this big heart made of pain d'épices. This is wonderful. Long lines for food as well. Oh, here's the manège. It's going up. Let's look it up. Now we can see it in action. Earlier they were playing Christmas songs. I don't know, I'm not sure why the music stopped now. So quite a festive atmosphere here. We have a couple of Santas chatting and drinking vin chaud, mulled wine. This is where you pay for the ride, where you get your ticket to get on the ride. See, it says caisse, cashier. This is the entrance where a poor gentleman is furiously screening or scanning all the health passes to let people in. Feel for him, actually. He's very busy. And then here we have a local restaurant that specializes in tapas, and they have a booth here where they serve you tapas, so you can hang out, have a drink, some wine, and then get some finger food. And beautiful nougat from Provence. So we don't have just specialties from the Touraine. We have beautiful nougat. You know this specialty? Made with almonds. Delicious. Comes in a hard version or in a soft version as well. So it's a small Christmas market. We have several like this one all around town. I have yet to see a big Christmas market in Tours. Last year was the lockdown, and this year is not 100% yet, is it? 2021. So let's hope for 2022, but we'll make the best of it. I don't give up. If you don't give up, I don't give up, and I will show you some sights tonight. Let's step outside. All right, here's an exit. Woo! Blinding lights. Okay, so we're going to see some lively streets. We're going to see some quieter streets. But this is what it feels like to stroll around Tours, around the downtown area where I live. I do this every day, at any time of day. Tours is a city that has a lot of chain stores, especially around that big Rue Nationale where I took you last time. But it also has a lot of independent stores, and some of them have been here for a really long time. So it has a bit of an old-fashioned taste when you go shopping. And I love it because so many cities now have the same chains, the same stores, and it's really nice to be in a city that, where people still shop in independent shops and boutiques. For some of them that have been here for a really long time. Bonsoir, bienvenue, friends. You are strolling around Tours in the heart of the Loire Valley with Véro, your best French friend in France. I am a virtual tour guide, a French language instructor, and I do live stream on a regular basis here in Facebook or on YouTube for the France with Véro community and for the France with Véro patrons in private events I run every month. We are reaching a street called Rue Marceau. It's a major street in town, lined with shops on both sides. And I'm going to follow it because there are fewer crowds here. It's also very pretty. This is a very good turnout. Thank you for being here. I know you're all busy shopping for gifts. Saturday is a busy day during the holiday season. So the buildings along the street are a good example of the buildings that were hastily erected after World War II, so people could have homes after the big fire in June 1940 when the Germans bombed Tours and the city burned for several days. So this is part of the sector that was completely razed, torn down. So they're not the prettiest buildings you will see tonight, but this is real history. It happened. And you're reminded of what happened here every day here when you walk around. So La Rue Marceau continues. It's actually a long one. And here we cut a major street in Tours, which is known as La Rue des Halles. Les Halles, the covered fool market. So if I went all the way over there, we would be at on the Rue Nationale where we strolled last time when we were walking towards the river. And right now I'm going to go in this direction, trying not to get hit by someone in the crowd. So La Rue des Halles has a lot of boutiques as well. I haven't shopped in Paris for a few months now. Everything I've needed I have been able to find here. There are a lot of boutiques in Tours. We have a few chains here. Atelier Saint-Michel, you've all heard of this brand. Those cookies made of butter. Les sablés and so forth. And see how pretty they are, all wrapped up for Christmas. Thank you for sending stars, I really appreciate it. Good morning and welcome. Welcome, welcome. All right, let's keep going. This is an art gallery that specializes in photography. I've purchased a few of their photos for my new apartment. Whoops, pardon mademoiselle. So La Rue des Halles is a major street, like I was saying, and it connects us to where we're headed, which is Le Vieux Tours, the old part of town. That's why I'm walking here, and we're almost there. So the streets on all sides have lights. Pretty nicely lit up this year, but because we're still a couple weeks away from Christmas, I haven't seen the exact same lights I saw last year. So to see these, you'll have to go back to my YouTube channel, France with Véro, and catch the replay of the tour I filmed just a few days before Christmas, because the lights were truly magnificent even though we were in lockdown and all the restaurants and cafes were closed. Look at this restaurant inside. There's a tea room, a salon de thé. It's kind of a nice place here. All right, we're almost there. Might be a little bit quieter where we're headed. So, let me share a few sights here. We are getting closer to Le Vieux Tours, the old part of town. And there's a beautiful building here I'm going to talk about in a second. But first, look at the street. What do you think of this street? Would you go there by yourself at midnight? La rue du panier à fleurs, the street of the flower basket. I read a story somewhere saying that there was prostitution there a long time ago. My dentist is actually right on the other side of that street. All right, back to the beautiful building. This is our basilica. But interestingly, the basilica in Tours is fairly new. It was built at the end of the 19th century. And you don't see it very well, but on the top is a statue, a giant statue of a gentleman who made his mark on the city and brought wealth and prosperity, especially to this part of the city. His name was Martin, and he was the Bishop of Tours, one of the first, and he became Saint Martin. And the lights are changing. This is what Tours does year-round. You're going to see it better in a little while. He's standing on top of there, facing south. South is where the city grew eventually. And inside the basilica is a crypt where nuns are often praying, and you can see his tomb. And I will tell you a little bit more about Saint Martin in a second. I want to get closer so you can see it better. All right, so look at this building, the Byzantine style, very interesting style, quite magnificent, especially if you stand on the other side. Now, Saint Martin, like I was saying, brought prosperity to Tours, to this section of Tours, because as soon as he died, they buried him around here. This was in the 4th century, and as early as the 5th century, Tours had become a major pilgrimage site. People coming here, praying Saint Martin. And it grew and grew and grew through the Middle Ages. And the buildings grew and the businesses grew, taking care of all these pilgrims. And we'll talk in a second about what happened next. The street we're standing on, La Rue des Halles, is named Les Halles, the covered food market, because it stands at the end. But this street wasn't here until the 19th century. In fact, if I stood in the middle of the street right now, I would be walking along the nave of a major, massive basilica, one that was rebuilt in the 11th century. And you can see how big it was because on the ground, I've shown you this before, they have marked where the posts were, you see? So in the 19th century, they destroyed what was left of the basilica. The revolution, of course, in the 18th century had been very rough on that poor basilica. And only a couple of towers remained, but you can guess the size of that basilica if I tell you that where we're standing was the nave, and that tower right over there in front of me, this one, I'm going to try and show it to you, the clock tower, was the entrance of the basilica. It's going to change color soon, so you'll see it a little better. So this was a massive basilica attracting for centuries pilgrims from all over Europe, and in fact it was one of the most well-known pilgrimage sites in all of Christianity. And it brought a lot of attention to Tours, clearly. Let's go around here for a sec. There's a lot of history here. I've been unpeeling the layers since I moved here in May, learning about the city every week, visiting new sites every week. There's a lot to be said. And I'm happy to report I'll start running in-person tours in Tours in January, whenever I'm in town. There's a lot more to say, of course, than what I'm showing you here in those live tours. This is a beautiful square, elegant square, called Place du Chateauneuf. There's a little patio in the center with olive trees. You've seen me here quite often. A great cafe at the corner. A few years ago, believe it or not, there were cars parked here and it was nothing much. But the city has spent considerable money fixing it up and turning it into a really pleasant place. And look at those facades. Aren't these beautiful? Now, Chateauneuf, the name of the square, was also the name of this part of town that grew in the Middle Ages around this pilgrimage site. Chateauneuf was one of the two centers of Tours. And after the Vikings attacked Tours and the rest of France and parts of the world in the 9th century, they protected this entire area with walls. And so the city grew even further. This tower I'm showing you, you've seen before, it's the Tour Charlemagne. So the basilica I was referring to, that's gone now, had 5 towers. I've showed you the first one at the entrance. This would have been the tower in the north transept, the one where the bells were. 11th and 12th century, can you believe it? It's still standing. Now on the other side you could see that in 1928 there was major damage and it collapsed, but they fixed it up. You can climb all the way to the top, and I did this summer for incredible views of the city. It's a pretty steep climb and you can only do it with a guide. And here is our friend Saint Martin de Tours, Saint Martin of Tours. So many cities in the world are named after him. And the basilica, you see the top of the basilica. We have some party people there having a great time at a favorite cafe known as the Tournesol, the sunflower. But I'm here because I want to show you the lights. Let's see. Yes. So at Christmas, we have lights here year-round. But at Christmas, they do a lot of work on the facades. So you see snowflakes and sparkling lights. You see them along the old Tour Charlemagne Tower. Now, you know Charlemagne, his name, but it's actually his wife, his last wife, who's buried here. That's why they named it Tour Charlemagne. Riedgard was her name, and she's buried here. So, Place de Chateauneuf, a lovely place, any time of day. There are benches you can sit on, or you can grab a drink here at the Tournesol. The Sunflower, always busy. Now here's a great place I want to show you as well. Tours has a lot of old buildings, and we are in the heart of it all here. Look at this building. It's a 15th century mansion. Late 15th century, the beginning of the Renaissance as it is called, was a private mansion that has now been turned. Look at that. It's been turned into a wonderful place where the city of Tours promotes its history and heritage. It's free, only open a few afternoons a week. You can go in through that door over there, and they use multimedia to show you how the city grew and its architecture. It's fascinating. I was there last weekend. So picture a wealthy family living here in the 15th century. Next to it in the 18th century was an inn, actually. Oh, and more lights. See, they keep changing on me. Look at that. Beautiful. Welcome, friends. If you've just joined us, this is Véro, your best French friend in France. We are taking a holiday stroll through the city of Tours, right in the heart of the Loire Valley tonight, enjoying some holiday cheer, some street vibes, some old stones, a little bit of history, just a dash. One of the oldest churches in town as well. It's not a church anymore. So there's so much just in this little courtyard here. So remember that if you come to Tours, you can stroll around the city at night, year-round, and enjoy the lights. They may not have as many as you're seeing tonight on the facades, but there is actually a route you can follow, and the tourist office has a map, and you can just follow and see all these old buildings with the lights on. One last peek at the Tour Charlemagne and the basilica next to it, with Saint Martin standing on top. Oh, the snowflakes are back. Gotta get the snowflakes. Les flocons de Noël, les flocons de neige. Isn't this pretty? Now, if you stand here in this corner, you actually see all three towers. The third one I showed you earlier, the clock tower, that was the entrance of the old basilica. That basilica suffered during the revolution, and it was eventually torn down at the beginning of the 19th century when they carved out that street we came on. And eventually they built the new basilica right here, but because of limited space, it's a very unusual one because it doesn't face east and west, it faces north and south. Tours is a lot like that. There are a lot of unusual things here. Now look at what they do on the side of some buildings with the lights. This is one of my favorite streets, Rue de Chateauneuf, named also after that old heart of the city that used to be here. La Rue de Chateauneuf, you've seen me here a lot. I have a favorite cafe here. I've met some of you here, in fact, for an apéro or other things. We have boutiques, restaurants. The favorite boutique of mine, it's called Bohémiade, and they have really affordable gifts. A lot of jewelry, scarves, very nice quality things, and it's always very well presented. And you can find something for everyone here. You see those big chunky necklaces? They're really in right now, and I got one of those. And they come in different colors. So the theme this week is green, clearly. Let's carry on. Strolling around along Rue de Chateauneuf. This is Pia, which is a fairly new pizza place, and their pizza is to die for. There's always a line, and you should make a reservation if you come here even at lunch. It's still early, but it'll get busy later. Look at this building. Look at this. I feel like I'm back in the high Middle Ages. I always like to say it feels like you live in a Harry Potter movie here in Hogsmeade. Here's a pretty street.
Sorry.
No, it's good. This is good. The gentleman said, this is a very nice country. Yes, it is, sir. This is the Rue du Change, Street of the Exchange, referring to the fact that when pilgrims arrived, they needed to trade their currency for the local currency, la livre tournois. And so this street is where a lot of these shops would be, where you could trade your currency when you arrived as a pilgrim. There were also a lot of hotels and inns around here for you, for the pilgrims. And it's one of my favorites for the lights. I love what they do with the lights on the street. We'll see it a little better on the other side. I'm going to stroll along La Rue de Chateauneuf because it's quiet and I like it. These days you favor quiet places. Look at this entrance. How would you like to come home to this every day? Of course, they had to put some ugly mailboxes on the side here. Not sure why they would do that, but the entrance is quite something, isn't it? All right, let's continue. Fun little creperie there. Mamie, be good. It's a chain. They're pretty good. How are we doing time-wise? Oh, we're good. Le Strapontin. Le Strapontin, one of probably my HQ here, Quartier Général. Either the terrace or indoors. It's also a jazz club on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I really enjoy sitting here. Great view, because when I sit here, I can look at people walk by, but I can also see the Tour Charlemagne, the old tower that I showed you earlier. It's going to get lit up again, and you can see it very well. Look at that. Bingo. You can see it very well from this cafe. I do this on market days often, on Saturday, because Les Halles covered food market is right here on the left. So I come here, sit, have a coffee, and then go home. Au Bonheur des Dames is a really fun little shop, more of a brocante. It's tiny inside and they have a ton of stuff. So if you like to dig through things, you should give them a try if you come to Tours. They're not open all the time. Au Bonheur des Dames. Another good cafe, Le Tourangeau, a traditional one. It's been here for a long time. And before I make a right here, I want to show you this store. This is called une chapellerie. Un chapeau in French is a hat. La chapellerie, do you see it written here? La chapellerie is a store that sells hats. The name is above the door. It says Brun, B-R-U-N. And this store, this business, is a family-owned business. It's been here since the 1900s. It's a typical family traditional business. So if you need a hat, you can come here and say that you got a hat from La Chapellerie Brun, which is an institution in Tours. In fact, I can see they have a lot of people in there. All sorts of styles. Probably have a beret or two. Let's see, and see it's all wood, hardwood floors inside, very traditional. wood countertops. Reminds me of my grandpa's store in southern France, actually. Gentlemen are on this side. Oh, look, a farmer's hat. How about that? All right, so this is one of our well-known stores here. Let's go on this big square called La Place du Grand Marche. The Grand Marche, so you can guess what used to happen here. A market. And it's a very lively place. I don't know if you remember, in July we came here for a fair, a traditional fair that's been happening since the Middle Ages, dedicated to basil and garlic. And it was packed with vendors. If you don't remember, you can go to my YouTube channel, France with Véro, look under the replay section and you will find it. And I just stroll here because I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. We have a bookstore, we have restaurants and cafes on both sides. And in those tiny streets on the sides here, there are lots of old buildings you can look at. They get really peaceful at night. It's really fun when I walk home to walk through these streets. Here's my friend. His name is the Monster. In the 19th century, there used to be a fountain here. But in 2004, an artist from Lyon, Xavier Veillant, set up this monster, which seems a little bit out of place because it's surrounded by very old homes. But in fact, if you look at it, the materials he used, steel and so forth, are modern, contemporary, but he's playing off of the theme of monsters and creatures from the Middle Ages. He's also lit up on the side, as you can see. And I like the monster because you never know if he's going to catch you or hug you. So now the name of the square has kind of become the Monster Square instead of the Grand Marche. But everybody knows it, and people will say, meet me at the Monster, buy the Monster. Or we have some really nice examples of half-timbered homes here, medieval homes that have survived. I love walking through here at night when I go home. I feel like I live in a postcard when I do. Look at that. Look at this street here. Very quiet. And the little deli market is called the Monster Market. So we're getting closer to the end of the tour. I'll be wrapping up in about 10 minutes. At one of the most famous places in town, another pretty street where my friends of Balzac Burger are located. Best burgers in Tours. Only quality ingredients and local products. And I don't even like burgers. I like theirs. Another one of our good bakers. We have quite a few good bakeries in town, and this is one of them. Look at this building. You're welcome. I'm glad you're enjoying the tour. I'm enjoying it too. I like sharing my city. I'm looking forward to doing this in person in January. I'll be able to do in-person tours around the city, showcase several neighborhoods. This is la rue du Grand Marché. We left la Place du Grand Marché. This is la rue du Grand Marché, and it's kind of splits in half. It goes this way, and then it goes that way, and this is where we're headed. Lined with a bit of an eclectic mix of facades here. We have some facades from the 18th century. We have 15th century half-timbered homes. And this is a lot like Tours. It's very rich architecturally. You never know what you're going to find. Lots of restaurants along this street. They're not my favorite ones in town, but you can find something here. Yes, you're right. The center of town is pretty much pedestrianized. And they're trying to do this more even. Well, minus this one. I just love this section when you arrive on the square. Look at this. Look at this facade. And we are coming upon the famous Joyeux Noël. He wanted to be on camera, I guess. We are coming upon the famous Place Plumereau, nicknamed Place Plume by locals. Hey, that's a cool facade. Look at these guys. Look what they've done. This is nice. This square was awarded the prestigious award in 2014 actually. Prestigious award, best place to have an apéro in France. It is in fact lined with cafes and restaurants, and it's always lively. But the interesting thing about La Place Plume, its nickname, is that the crowd changes throughout the day. I like to come in the morning for coffee or late afternoon for a glass of wine. At night, it's a very young crowd. They party very late at night. So if you're considering renting an apartment nearby, be very careful because it gets pretty loud. Les Trois Rois, a well-known place for cocktails and drinks. And this is the Rue du Change. We saw it from the other side earlier, if you recall. This is a photo I've taken several times, and every time I've shared it on social media, someone has asked me if they could use it to paint it, because it's so perfect, this street. And look at this house. So we are in the district where people in charge of exchanging currency worked, and some of them were quite wealthy. And so this big house at the corner, unlike the other ones, the facades are made of slate, not wood like the other ones, slate. And so this was clearly a status symbol for someone to have a facade entirely covered in slate. Now, if you get closer, you can see that it's intricately carved. You have, there's a sculpture of the Holy Family. There's another one here. This one is a monk. We had a lot of religious people around here, attracted by, because it was a pilgrimage site and so many religious sites were here. And this is what you do when you're not tall enough. You climb on someone's back. I'm kidding. That's what I should do, in fact. So La Place Plumereau has had a very interesting story. It's changed shapes several times. There used to be a popular market here, and the shape was different at some point in time. Back in the 80s, there was a parking lot in the middle. But what's very important to know about La Place Plume, La Place Plumereau, is that this was the first site in France that was saved in terms of being protected, being restored because of the heritage of the city. And it happened between the 60s and the 70s with the help of the French government. And it is said that what they did here to save the square and to restore the houses around the square is what influenced André Malraux, the Minister of Culture of General de Gaulle in the 60s, before he pushed for some groundbreaking laws to save entire towns and neighborhoods all around France. The Marais in Paris, the town of Sarlat in the Périgord. But it started here in Tours with this square. Now today, the protected area in Tours has been pushed out all the way to the cathedral, which stands on the other side of town. And this is one of the largest historic protected areas in France, with over 2,500 buildings ranging from the 12th century all the way to the 19th century.
Yes, if you find
La rue du Commerce over there, super lively, lined with bars, lots of students. We have a big student population here. So la rue du Commerce is over there. Yes, there is a special magic at Christmas. In fact, the buildings around the square are not just from the 15th century like the half-timbered homes we saw. Some of them are from the 18th century and the 19th century. My favorite is this one. It's a neo-Renaissance style that was added in the mid-19th century, and I love this building. Ever since I came here, it's been my favorite building. And it helps that the restaurant right under it, Chez Madi, is also a great place. Little different from the typical bistro fare you find in Tours and other French cities and in Paris. They serve great food at lunchtime, very creative, very fresh. And at night they have tapas style food. And it's a great place to come, right here, Chez Madi, right below my favorite building. I'm going to pull down my mask so I can say a quick hello to you before I wrap up. This will be my last live stream or virtual tour until the end of the month, when I will pop up again in Paris. I'm going to do this with my favorite place behind me, which is le Café, le Vieux Mûrier. I've shown you this place very often. So I'm going to take a few days off. My son's visiting from the United States. We're going to be traveling around the Touraine, the Loire Valley. And I will see you again in Paris. I'm going to run a couple of events to celebrate New Year's Eve in Paris. One of them will be exclusively for my patrons. If you want to help me run more tours, and if you've enjoyed what I've put out there in 2021, there are different ways to sponsor my work and to help me. Stars on Facebook like you have tonight. Thank you so much for that. My virtual tip jar on PayPal. And of course, joining the Friends with Véro Club on Patreon is the best way to treat yourself as a Christmas gift to incredible content about France, French culture, and even the French language. And I don't think you can find that anywhere else. So consider doing that. All of that will be mentioned in the notes. But for now, I want to wish you Joyeux Noël, happy holidays. And I want to thank you for being by my side in 2021. It's been another interesting year. So let me flip back to Tours, to glorious Tours, so we can wrap up here. Thank you for being here. Now you can go on to your busy day. Le Café du Vieux Mûrier, a local institution. This is probably where I'm going to be sitting and have a glass of wine now. I tend to do that after virtual tours. They're pretty friendly in there.
Pardon, s'il vous plaît.
And then we will wrap up, and I will wish you happy holidays. À bientôt, friends.